Highway horror story. The dashboard clock read 2:47 a.m. when Sarah's headlights caught the figure standing in the middle of Route 66. She slammed the brakes, her Honda Civic skidding slightly on the rain-slicked asphalt. The figure didn't move, just stood there, perfectly still, illuminated in the harsh white beams. "Jesus Christ," Sarah muttered, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd been driving for 6 hours straight, trying to reach Denver before sunrise for her sister's emergency surgery. The Arizona desert stretched endlessly on both sides of the highway, dark and lifeless except for the occasional cluster of sagebrush. The figure was a woman in a white dress, her long black hair hanging over her face. She stood with her arms at her sides, unmoving, as rain poured down around her. Sarah rolled down her window halfway. "Hey, are you okay? Do you need help?" Nothing. Not even a twitch. Sarah's phone showed no signal. It hadn't for the past 40 miles. She glanced at her rearview mirror. Empty highway behind her. Empty highway ahead. Just her, the rain, and this woman who appeared out of nowhere. "I'm going to pull over. Okay." Sarah called out, though something deep in her gut screamed at her to drive around the woman and keep going. But she couldn't. What if this person was hurt? What if she'd been in an accident? Sarah eased the car forward slowly, then pulled onto the shoulder about 20 feet ahead. She grabbed her phone, useless without signal, but the flashlight still worked, and stepped out into the rain. "Miss, are you hurt?" The woman remained motionless in the middle of the road. Sarah could see her more clearly now. The white dress was old-fashioned, something from the 1950s maybe, with a full skirt that should have been moving in the wind but hung perfectly still despite the storm. The woman's feet were bare. Sarah's sneakers splashed through puddles as she approached. "Miss, I can give you a ride. There's a gas station about 30 miles. The woman's head snapped up. Sarah froze. The face staring back at her wasn't right. The features were blurred, like someone had smudged a painting before it dried. Where eyes should have been were dark hollows that seemed to go on forever. The mouth opened impossibly wide, revealing darkness within. "Drive," the thing whispered, though its lips didn't move. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "Drive and don't look back." Sarah stumbled backward, nearly falling. Her flashlight beam scattered across the wet pavement as she turned and ran for her car. Behind her, she heard a sound like tearing fabric, followed by something that might have been laughter or might have been wind through canyon walls. She threw herself into the driver's seat, yanked the door shut, and locked it with shaking hands. The woman, the thing, was gone. The highway stretched empty in both directions. Sarah's breathing came in ragged gasps. She put the car in drive, pressed the accelerator, and surged forward. Her eyes kept flicking to the rearview mirror, expecting to see that white dress, that ruined face. Nothing. She drove faster, pushing 70, then 80. The rain pounded harder now, the wipers struggling to keep up. On either side of the highway, the desert seemed to press closer, though that was impossible. Just her exhausted mind playing tricks. Then she saw the lights, red and blue, flashing in her rearview mirror. A police car, closing fast. Relief flooded through her. Another person. Someone real. Someone who could explain what she'd just seen, or at least confirm she wasn't losing her mind. Sarah pulled over and rolled down her window as a patrol car stopped behind her. In her side mirror, she watched a figure in a state trooper uniform step out and approach. Something about the way he moved wasn't quite right. Too smooth, too fluid, like he was gliding rather than walking. The trooper's face appeared at her window, and Sarah's relief curdled into terror. It was the same blurred features, the same hollow eyes. But now it wore a uniform and a wide-brimmed hat. License and registration, it said in that impossible voice that came from everywhere. Sarah screamed and hit the gas. The car lurched forward, tires squealing. In the rearview mirror, the trooper stood motionless in the road, watching her go. Then he raised one hand and pointed down the highway ahead of her. That's when Sarah saw them. Dozens of figures lined both sides of the road. Men, women, children, all wearing clothes from different eras. Victorian dresses, 1920s suits, 1970s bell-bottoms, modern jeans and T-shirts, all with those same blurred, ruined faces, all perfectly still in the pouring rain. Sarah gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. She kept her eyes fixed straight ahead, trying not to look at the figures as she passed them. But she could feel them watching, could sense those hollow eyes tracking her movement. A child stepped into the road ahead. Sarah swerved, barely missing it. Another figure appeared on her left, then her right. They were closing in, stepping onto the highway, forming a gauntlet she had to navigate at 70 miles per hour in the rain. "Please," Sarah whispered. "Please, I just want to get to Denver. My sister needs me." The figures multiplied. Hundreds now, thousands, an endless crowd of the wrong and the ruined. Some reached out toward her car as she passed. Others simply stood and watched with those terrible hollow eyes. Then Sarah saw it, a light in the distance. Not headlights, something else. A soft, warm glow that seemed to cut through the rain and darkness. As she raced toward it, the figures began to fade, becoming translucent, then vanishing entirely like morning mist. The light resolved into a small roadside diner, its neon sign reading Betty's Place, open 24 hours. The parking lot held 3 cars, and through the windows, Sarah could see actual people, a truck at a counter, a waitress pouring coffee, an elderly couple in a booth. Sarah nearly sobbed with relief as she pulled into the lot. The rain had stopped. The highway behind her was empty and normal, with no sign of the figures that had lined it moments before. Inside the diner, warmth and the smell of coffee and bacon enveloped her. The waitress, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a name tag reading Betty, looked up and smiled. "Rough night, honey?" Betty asked, already pouring a cup of coffee. Sarah collapsed onto a stool at the counter, her legs shaking. There were people on the highway. In the rain. They saw them. Did you? The trucker down the counter didn't look up from his pie. Happens sometimes on this stretch, especially during storms. Sarah stared at him. "What are they?" Betty set the coffee in front of her. "Lost souls, some say. People who died on this highway over the years. Accidents, murders, breakdowns in the desert heat. They gather during storms, trying to hitch a ride home, or warn people, or maybe just remember what it felt like to be alive." "The woman in the white dress," Sarah whispered. "She told me to drive and not look back." Betty nodded slowly. "That'd be Mary Catherine Weaver. Died in 1952 when her car broke down out here. They found her 3 days later. He got her. She tries to warn people now, keep them moving, keep them from stopping where she stopped." "She saved my life," Sarah realized. "Maybe so," Betty said. "Or maybe she just didn't want you joining them out there. Coffee's on the house. Honey. And if I were you, I'd wait until sunrise before getting back on that road. They don't come out in daylight." Sarah sat in that diner until the first rays of sun painted the desert orange and gold. When she finally walked back to her car, she noticed something she'd missed before, a small bouquet of wildflowers on her windshield, tied with a white ribbon. They were already wilting in the morning heat. She drove the rest of the way to Denver without stopping, and she made it in time for her sister's surgery. But Sarah never took Route 66 again, especially not at night. And sometimes, when it rained, she thought she could see a woman in a white dress standing at the edge of the highway, watching traffic pass, still trying to save people from the fate that claimed her 70 years ago. The desert keeps its dead close, and on Route 66, the line between the living and the lost grows thin when darkness falls and storms roll in. Sarah knew the truth now. Some roads are haunted not by malice, but by tragedy, and some ghosts are trying to help, even if their help comes wrapped in horror. She never forgot Mary Catherine Weaver, and she never forgot the others, the endless parade of the lost and the ruined, forever trapped between this world and the next, walking an endless highway that leads nowhere and everywhere at once.